evening, everyone. Today I will be sharing the first video in my Otakon review and debriefing series. Before we begin, I will provide some context on Otakon and how it evolved. Otakon started in 1994 under the name Otakon 94. It is an otaku-themed convention, which is where they get their namesake. Otaku plus convention equals Otakon. The focus is on anime, manga, video games, and other forms of Japanese media. The founders, unsatisfied with the options they had at that time, wanted to create a convention that was by fans, for fans. They started out as a small convention in Baltimore, specifically the Maryland National Harbor Resort. However, the iteration that we are seeing today started in 2004. Recently, the organizers realized how rapidly the con was growing and decided they needed more space. In 2016, they moved the convention from Baltimore to the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in Washington, D.C. This is a summer con, usually taking place near the end of July to the beginning of August, depending on where the days fall. This year, the con took place the weekend of July 29th through July 31st. Now that is out of the way, let me provide some background information on myself. I am an NYC-based cosplayer. I have been cosplaying since 2012. My first con was NYCC 2012. Over the years, I have accumulated quite the cosplay collection, currently standing at about 50 and rising. My collection is so big that it takes up an entire area of my apartment. Being in NYC, I have loads of cons and other cosplay-related events at my disposal, clocking in at about one per week, especially in the summer. Two of the biggest cons being the aforementioned NYCC and Anime NYC. For this reason, I never really felt the need to go out of state for anything, since I am not exactly deprived of stuff. It's hilariously quite the opposite. However, this year I wanted to try something new. I like traveling and have been to 7 countries, not including the USA, which is my home country. I have also been to a few of the other states, the most recent one being Florida. I wanted to experience a large con in a different state, but I did not want to fly to it. Since there are so many cons around the US, I decided to ask my peers here in NYC for recommendations. Upon asking, all of them gave Otakon a standing ovation. Most have been longtime attendees, some even attending back in 2004 when it was smaller. I thought, okay, I'll try this one. I spoke with my mom about it and she agreed to travel with me and pay the hotel and Amtrak fees. We planned for this trip way back in April. First thing on the agenda, hotel. Otakon has their own company that deals with the hotels. There is a separate website and phone number. The con hotel was the Marriott Marquis, which was right next to the convention center. There was even an underground path connecting the hotel lobby to the con center basement. Those of you who regularly do out-of-state cons know that hotel rooms fill up quickly and that it is often difficult to get a room at the con hotel. Unfortunately, we booked too late, so we could not get a room at the Marquis. Luckily, we had plenty of other options. The con even partnered with hotels in the area to offer a heavily discounted price. We ended up settling on 2 different hotels. The first hotel was called the Melrose Georgetown Hotel. It was a smaller, sort of boutique-like hotel that was situated in the area with all the politicians and important figureheads. Because it was farther from the con center, it was cheaper. However, there were not many things around it, and anything around it looked expensive. The second hotel was the Grand Hyatt, Washington, D.C. This one was a bigger hotel and closer to the con center. It was also closer to other things such as the White House, monument, museums, etc. However, it was much more expensive than the Melrose, even with the con pricing. We put in a reservation for both and decided to choose later. After careful consideration, we chose the Grand Hyatt. As stated earlier, my mom traveled with me because she wanted a vacation. While she is not into all the otaku and cosplay stuff, she is supportive of me doing it. Since I plan to be at the con all day, she needed something to do. The proximity of this hotel to all the tourist attractions and the convenience of being a couple blocks from the con center, it was worth paying more for the room. Now that we had our lodging figured out, next thing on the agenda is transportation. There were 2 options. First, renting a car and driving down. This would give me more space to put my suitcases and props, but it is a 6-hour drive. With the price of gas these days, it would have been even more expensive to rent a car. I also suffer from terrible motion sickness, so I have trouble on road trips. The second option was to buy an Amtrak ticket. Once again, the tickets were expensive, but once priced out, came to about the same price as the rental car. Both of us have never used Amtrak, so we wanted to try that out. I also do not suffer as much from motion sickness on trains. Once decided, we booked tickets on the Acela branch, from Moynihan Train Hall in NYC to Union Station in DC. Acela is the express line, so it was much more expensive than the regular, regional, and local lines. In addition, they only offered business and first class, no economy. Upon arriving in DC, we were going to ride the DC subway. I looked it up and found that the red line from Union Station took us straight to our hotel, which was at Metro Center Station. It was only like 3 stops, so it was not that long. I thought the map showed the station a block from the hotel, but when we arrived, we realized that it was connected to the basement of the Grand Hyatt. That was a pleasant surprise. We still had to schlep the bags to the lobby, but it was not as bad as I thought it would be. Now that we had the logistics done, the next thing on the agenda is packing. It took me forever to come up with my lineup. I did not have the full lineup done until about a few days before we left. It was difficult since I had to take into consideration that we were traveling. This meant that any cosplay with a huge prop was not going to cut it. About 70% of my cosplays involved some large prop, so all those were out of the question. In addition, I needed to consider that we had to schlep the suitcases up and down the subway stairs. I did not want to overload the suitcases. Considering that we were set to arrive early Friday morning, the 29th, and leave Sunday afternoon, the 31st, I needed an easy outfit to travel home in on Sunday. After a lot of consideration, I finally landed on 2 cosplays a day. One for the morning and early afternoon, and the other for the late afternoon, evening, and night, except Sunday, which was only 1 cosplay. My lineup was as follows. Friday AM and early afternoon was Shadow the Hedgehog from the Sonic franchise. Friday late afternoon and night was Riley from the Pokemon franchise. I caught wind of a formal on Friday night, which is part of the reason I chose Riley. I did a steampunk version of him which followed the dress code. Saturday AM and early afternoon was Elfilin from Kirby and the Forgotten Land, or KATFL for short. This is one of my favorite cosplays. I did a humanoid cybergoth version of him. Saturday late afternoon and night was Fecto Forgo from KTFL. Yes, that is the character's name. This is one of my newer cosplays, only having been put together the week before Otakon. Playing off the KTFL storyline, I made this cosplay slightly like Elfilin's, with a few noticeable differences. I even reused some pieces between the cosplays. Once again, it was a humanoid cybergoth take on the character. I caught wind of a rave on Saturday night and thought this would be perfect. It just fit! On Sunday was Trainer Red from the Pokemon franchise. I only did one since there was not enough time for a second one. I was set to travel home on Sunday straight after the con, so I needed something simple and comfortable. With all that in mind, I started packing. I tore apart my apartment in the days leading up to our departure. I will now proceed to go over my method to the best of my ability. 1. I took all the planned cosplays off the rack in order of wear. I have this huge rack in my apartment, which is where most of my cosplays live. My cosplays often feature fabrics that can't or shouldn't be folded, all the woven fabrics, plus leather and faux leather. I have extra hooks around my apartment, so I hung them on those. 2. Next, I spent time gathering all the accessories. My accessories are more scattered since I tend to reuse them between cosplays. Most of my general accessories are kept in a spare closet. I use zip-up canvas bags and plastic envelopes to keep those together. I also labeled each container with a character name, so I would not get confused. 3. After I gathered all the wigs. My wigs are either on heads or in plastic envelopes. Once I found one, I put it with the rest of its cosplay. 4. Finally, I gathered all the props and shoes. If the prop was small, I put it in the container with the rest of the cosplay. If it was big, I just put it in the suitcase on top of its cosplay. I bagged all of the shoes and put those in the suitcase. I did not want them to get the rest of the stuff dirty. 5. Other things I had. A wig box with a wig stand, a tall collapsible wig stand. I kind of regret not bringing more collapsible stands. Once I had everything laid out, I put the full cosplays in the suitcase one by one, in order of wear. This would prove helpful later when I was unpacking. It would also keep me somewhat organized and help me make sure I did not forget anything. I ended up using 1 checked suitcase, 2 carry-on suitcases, and 2 personal bags. We brought a second checked suitcase and put one of the carry-on suitcases inside of it. I knew I was going to buy stuff at the con, so I need the extra space. Finally, everything was done. Hotel, transportation, packing. Otakon was officially a go. I was so excited. It would be my first out-of-state con, and after hearing all the rave reviews, I went in with high expectations. However, little did I know that these hopes would be shattered upon arriving to the con.